Hi, this is Congressman Dennis Kucinich. Hello to all my friends at the Florida Peace Alliance. I want to thank you for your continued commitment, not only to helping to pass legislation, H.R. 808, that would create a cabinet-level Department of Peace and Nonviolence, but also for your willingness to make the pursuit of peace an active part of your everyday life, because that's surely how we're able to bring about a new direction, not only in this country, but in the world. We live in times where some simply do not believe in peace, where war is seen as a legitimate instrument of policy. But we also understand that wherever there is darkness, it is our responsibility to bring light, and the proposal to create a Department of Peace is exactly that. It illuminates this dark landscape of war. It gets people to understand that there is not just a better way, but that the only way to achieve peace in our world is not through war, but through building structures where people can understand the relevance of peace in their everyday lives. That's why the Department of Peace focuses not just on dealing with the larger problems of the world, but looking at the relationship between peace in our own lives, peace in that microcosm, and peace in the macrocosm in the larger world, through the reference of our own experience. When we're able to successfully deal with the challenges of domestic violence, spousal abuse, child abuse, we deal with those as a society in a positive way. We can, as you know, set in motion forces that are more gentle. Think of how many families in this country are affected by this scourge of domestic violence. What if America had a dedication through education, teaching children at the earliest age about the importance of respecting the person of another? If we have programs not just of peace giving and peace sharing, but mutuality, getting the other person to understand that standing for peace is respecting oneself. What underlies this commitment to peace is a belief in human unity. And when we stand on respect for self and respect for others, we're reinforcing the principles of human unity, that we are all interconnected and interdependent. And when we understand that, it's very easy to see how in establishing a Department of Peace and Nonviolence, where we use education to teach peace, where we set up programs to help those who are dealing with problems of domestic violence, spousal abuse, child abuse, violence in schools, racial violence, gang violence, gun violence, violence against gays, all of the symptomatology of violence in our society is waiting for a collective and organized response that can only come from our own individual understanding of the imperative of peace. Because we understand the importance of human unity, because we understand that the world is one, that the world is interconnected and interdependent, we stand for peace. And to do so in an organized manner, as you do in Florida, creates the potential not simply for a new cabinet-level position at some point in the not-too-distant future, but also creates the potential that our society at large will come to an understanding that we need to create structures of peace in our society. It's very easy to advocate peace in the world, but when we try to bring those principles into our own daily lives, that's when it becomes somewhat of a challenge. And so when we think peace, speak peace, and act peace, we begin to have the integrity that enables us to stand for peace in every other area of our endeavors, including in government. So your commitment then becomes absolutely essential to carrying this message throughout Florida through carrying it to the community level, to talking about the practical nature of peace. So much discussion about peace ends up looking at peace as some kind of a nebulous construct. But when you bring it to a practical discussion about relationships, which certainly everyone is concerned about, then you come to help people understand the urgency of developing principles of peace and bringing them into our everyday lives. I mean, this really goes beyond government. It's a spiritual teaching, and it goes beyond religion. It deals with how do we survive as a species? What are those principles that bind us to each other? How do we find a way to build a society, to be able to capture that evolutionary impulse to be more than we are and better than we are? I mean, these are thoughts that are worthy of our humanity, that inspire us to keep reaching up to create new conditions. And peace is a condition which is waiting to be created in our world. When you look at the type of thinking that brings us into war, the thinking that says that war is inevitable, you will find deep in those thoughts an individual's experience with violence, the lack of resolution of violence in someone's life, or the mistaken belief that somehow they were able to create a given circumstance because they use violent conduct. All of this, of course, is based on a falsehood, that the falsehood that somehow you can achieve peace through war. Some people have a great deal of difficulty in understanding this because they think, well, does that mean we don't have a right to defend ourselves? Of course not. We have a right to defend ourselves. But we're in a time where issues of self-defense are really obliterated by the fact of aggressive warfare. And we, individually, and the nation collectively has no right under any law to engage in aggressive violence. But in a way, the aggressive violence that was launched against Iraq, for example, is symptomatic of a range of violent conduct in our society for which there is no organized way to address it, to ameliorate it. There is a connection, not only between what is innermost in our own hearts and outermost in the world, but there's a connection between the way our government's structured and the outcome that we get, the fact that America is so dedicated to empire building, to build up a military budget. Of course, at some point there is going to be not only a violent conduct on the part of a nation, but also a violent response from others. But we're aimed at changing all that. That's the beauty of your work in Florida, because you have provided your friends and neighbors with an opportunity to have a deep discussion which really needs to be obtained in America today. And that is a discussion about what is peace, how do we create it, is there a legitimate role for the government in helping to set up structures to create peace, how can we support programs in the community right now that relate to people achieving peace in their own lives, in their families, at their schools. The practical application of principles of peace is what will help people to understand that there is a very powerful national need for us to address the challenges of violence in our society. So let us move forward with this great deal of confidence that we can change the world, with the understanding that we are all one, that we are interconnected and interdependent. Thank you for standing for human unity. Thank you.